Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I'm talking about Salt and Sanctuary. I actually own the digital version of this game for several years now, and I bounced off of it pretty hard after only spending about half an hour with it. I don't really gravitate towards that Dark Souls type of style, and if I was just to give you an elevator pitch about this game, it's Dark Souls but 2D. It very unabashedly goes for that Dark Souls style in terms of like your stamina and world building. It's everything Dark Souls just in 2D, and I put about half an hour into it and I just said nope and moved right along. Well, recently my coworker decided to download the game and he encouraged me to give it another shot so we can kind of play it together, not necessarily like at the same time, although there is a two-player mode for this game, but just so we can kind of like be playing through it along with each other and talking about like bosses and stuff like that. So that was enough incentive for me to give this game another try, maybe give it a little more of a look rather than just half an hour, and I actually finally did roll the credits on it. Now, I hear the comparison of Hollow Knight being a 2D Dark Souls. However, I think this one is a lot more closer to that Dark Souls style of game. Hollow Knight is a little more cartoonish and quick-paced, and it's kind of its own beast, whereas Salt and Sanctuary is a little more realistic in terms of physics. You can only jump just a teeny tiny little bit. Your character will get tired. There is a stamina meter, and you have to do a little bit more managing in terms of stats, where if you're decked out in a bunch of heavy armor, then your rolls and your attacks and your actions are going to use up more of that stamina. So you kind of have to build up your character in a more RPG way, where you have to be a little more thoughtful about how you create your character. It's just I hear a lot of comparisons with Hollow Knight to Dark Souls, and this game is a lot closer to it. So at the beginning of the game, you can customize your character, and first and foremost, my biggest complaint about this game is the look of the humans themselves. I think they look really cheap. I think they look like a Flash game on a free-to-play game website. I definitely do not like the look of the humans themselves. But putting that all aside, you are able to customize your character, give them any kind of skin tone you want, hair color, all of that stuff that you're pretty used to in a character customization at this point. And you can also choose a class. So I chose a paladin. I can't attest to the other classes, although I know that there is like a wizard you can play as, or an archer, or a thief. There's a lot of different variety here, and if you do change your mind, you can kind of start building your character towards a different way if you don't like the way that he starts out as. It's probably for the best though if you do plan ahead of time what you want your character to be like. So I chose a paladin. I typically, for these types of Dark Souls games, I like to play as a really heavy hitter who can take a lot of heavy hits. So that's definitely the paladin route that I went. I ended up going down the heavy armor route, where I just am able to equip all of the best armor because I can't dodge any attacks in this game. It is very difficult for me. Even using like a shield, it seems like the shields only block certain attacks. So at the end of the day, I'm just going to build a super tanky guy who has a two-handed mace. So I'm just going to eat any of the enemy attacks that come my way and just try to heal through them and do more damage to them before they can kill me off. So anything that I could build towards taking the most hits possible, that's the route that I went down. I can't really attest to what it's like playing as a lightweight character. I was just getting hit left and right, and luckily I was tanky enough to be able to take all of those hits. It's definitely the type of game that doesn't do any hand-holding or explanation, really. It's mostly like trial by fire, where they just throw you in the game and they expect you to figure a lot of this stuff out on your own. Very Dark Souls style, like I was saying. I tended to look a couple of these stats up, but other than that, I was able to figure out most of it myself. Even the exploration, I didn't need to look too many things up. However, I would have really appreciated a map of some sort. It's the type of game that there might even be a map that you could uncover somewhere in the world and I just don't know it, but I never played with a map, so I have no idea if that's even in the game or not. It's just like, it's an interesting game because it's the type of game that you could potentially miss a lot out on. There's not like a specific curated path. There's even a lot of bosses that you could potentially miss if you don't go down those routes. And so if you're not playing using a guide or anything like that, you're going to miss a ton of gear and boss fights and things like that. But it makes for interesting conversation. I'm excited to finally sit down and talk with my coworker about all this because I'm sure that we had totally different experiences and everyone's own experience is going to be personalized to how they decide to play the game, whether it's what class you choose, what pathways you choose to go down. It's all so personalized, which I actually am kind of for. So the story kind of takes a back seat after the beginning of the game. Basically, you are on a ship and you are in charge of delivering a princess to this other land because they're going to get married and there's going to be an alliance between these two factions and there will be peace throughout the land. But your ship is attacked by all of these creatures and you end up shipwrecked on an island. And after that, the plot just kind of takes a back seat. Now, it's still there. You just kind of have to work a little more for your plot, just like Dark Souls. I think I'm going to be saying that a lot, but you're just by talking to some of the friendlier humanoids or reading certain texts, you can kind of piece together the lore of this island and kind of like what's going on story-wise, but you definitely have to work for it, or just look it up online like I did afterwards and read, okay, what the heck did I just play? But gameplay first and foremost, and then the plot is if you really want to hunt it down. So rather than souls like in Dark Souls, you use this resource called salt, and every time you defeat an enemy, they drop a little bit of salt, and then you go to the special kind of sanctuaries, hence the name Salt and Sanctuary, and you spend this salt at these sanctuaries in order to level up your character, and this is what you can do in terms of boosting up your stamina or your strength or the amount of armor weight that you can carry on your person at one time. But if you die while you are holding your salt, you are going to drop your salt and the enemy that defeated you is going to carry it. And if you don't reclaim that salt before you die again, that salt is lost forever. So you want to be really careful not to go around carrying a ton of salt in a dangerous area because you could potentially lose all of it and have to work your way back up. So whenever you possibly can, I would recommend spending that salt to level up your character whenever you can. I was pretty high up level-wise at the end of the game. I was almost to 90. I think I was like 87 or 88. And the end boss was actually kind of easy for me. So either I built my character a really good way, maybe the heavy armor build is the way to go for this type of game. But I felt like by the end of the game, I finally had really grasped the systems and I could take a ton of hits and it definitely was easy. So I might have been a bit over leveled just from exploring and being lost in this game and gathering up all of that salt. It's definitely very gory and bloody, which, hey, you know, I'm here for it. I can dig it. And the hits are definitely satisfying, especially with like a big old two-handed mace. It has a very satisfying hit to it when you are hitting these enemies. It makes you feel really strong, and it has like a weight behind all of your attacks. And just like these types of Dark Souls games, once you are committed to an attack, you are committed. So if you don't plan your combat routes correctly, an enemy could potentially hit you before you finish your swing to hit them. You are committed. It's not just button mashing. You have to think a little more methodical on your feet when you are doing combat like this, especially if you are a big, heavy, sluggish character like I was. It's certainly easy to get chained by attacks, which can be pretty frustrating for me. That's another reason why I typically bounce off of these types of games, where if you are hit by an enemy, you can potentially get hit by another enemy as you are getting back up on your feet, and it's really easy to get chained by attacks and die while there's nothing you could do, because if you can't roll or move or anything like that, you just keep getting chained by these enemy attacks. It feels very unfair, and I don't think my opinion of that has changed having beaten this game, but it did become a little more tolerable after I built my guy a little more tanky. You do have like a roll, and you can equip your character with a shield and try to time that parry, so you do have a couple different options here, but I was never good enough to do those, so I just ate all of those attacks. Now, as you progress through this game, I would not call this game a Metroidvania in terms of like Metroid or Hollow Knight, but when you do defeat certain bosses and you progress through certain areas, you do get branded with special traversal powers that unlock different areas of the world. Some of these traversal powers, some of these brands aren't even necessary to finish the game, which I thought was pretty cool, because it's just like another section of like things that you could potentially miss on your own personal playthrough. But it is certainly hype when you get a new brand and you finally like, oh, now I can go back and progress through that area just like a Metroidvania game would do. The world is huge. There's tons of systems. There's tons of these secrets, and it's actually kind of impressive, because at the beginning of my first playthrough of this game, while I bounced off, I thought this game would be actually kind of short and forgettable, but by having just finished this game, it says that my in-game clock time is 55 hours, and I refuse to believe that I spent that long playing this game. There must be some sort of counter when my Switch is asleep, because there's no way that I had spent 56 hours playing through this game. I can't even remember the last game that I did spend that amount of time, but if I was just estimate, I would guess I'd probably play maybe just like a little less than 20 hours. It is a huge game with so much to uncover. However, I still hold my point that I feel like this game is lacking a certain amount of polish. Some of it feels cheap. I can't quite place my finger on what feels so cheap to me, what could have been polished up. I definitely the human models. I don't think that the environment itself looks bad, and I think a lot of the bosses actually look pretty cool, but there's just overall, this game kind of feels like it lacks a certain amount of work, just a little bit of polish. But since I can't bring up any specific points, I guess that whole point is moot. Now, even at the beginning of this second playthrough, just trying to get into it, I wasn't for it at the beginning. I always stuck my nose up whenever I heard this game, so it always left like a bad taste in my mouth just thinking of that half-hour beginning playthrough. But something changed in me around like the 3 to 4 hour mark, where suddenly I was all for this game. It really got its hooks into me. I just wanted to play more and more of it. I mean, you don't play almost 20 hours of a game that you absolutely hate like I thought I did hate this game. So I'm definitely glad that I gave this game a second chance and really dived into it. I just needed that extra incentive to stick with it long enough for it to land with me. It has that like one more try mentality, because I would always get frustrated whenever I would die to a boss and I'd have to walk back all the way from this sanctuary, that checkpoint, go back to the boss, and then die immediately and do it again. But for some reason, this time I had a little more patience with it, and it had that like one more try. And I see that satisfaction of finally overcoming a challenge that has been kicking your butt forever. And I felt like maybe I didn't really learn anything like I would in Metroid Dread, where if I'm stuck on a difficult boss, it's because of me. In this game, it kind of just feels like I was banging my head against the wall, just trying the same thing over and over again. It wasn't as fluid as something like Metroid Dread would be, so I felt like some of the times it wasn't my fault, but even just banging my head against the wall over and over again will eventually crumble that wall and still give me that satisfaction of crumbling the wall. I mentioned I'm not crazy about the human aesthetic, but visually it's also very dark, which I don't like. Very brown and black colors, very dull and grim, and I know that is an artistic choice, especially with making things so dark, because you're underground a lot just with dimly lit torches, and there are ways to go around this by carrying your own torch, or there are spells spells. I was playing as a paladin, so I would use a lot of these prayers in order to buff up my character, and one was to have like a little light above me. So, but even using these countermeasures to fight the darkness, I definitely did not like that. I'd rather have like something more bright and colorful, but it is the aesthetic choice that they're going for with the really grim and dark contrast. So it fit the bill. I understand they did it on purpose, but it's just not my type of aesthetic. I also really hate that I can't pause this game. I know it's just because that's what Dark Souls games do. You can't pause it, but at least with the Nintendo Switch, there's a workaround with this where if you just go to the home menu, then it will pause the game for you. It won't run when your Switch is asleep or when you're on the home menu. However, I guess the game counter will still go up when your Switch is asleep, but at least I had some way of setting the game down when I needed to put it down. It's so dumb that you can't pause. Every game should be able to pause. It's not a smart gameplay mechanic in my opinion. You know, overall though, despite all of my complaints about this genre and this game, I actually, having beaten this game just barely, I've made a pretty hard 180 about this whole game, Salt and Sanctuary. I no longer stick my nose up whenever I hear anyone bring this game up. I'm actually like all for this game, and I'm really happy that I played through it. I wouldn't believe it myself having not played this game earlier, but I actually think that I will give this game a 4 out of 5, and if you are all for those Dark Souls types of games or these 2D tough combat games, definitely look into Salt and Sanctuary, because I actually think despite its crappy appearance, it is a really underrated game even. If I was a 1 game a month type of guy, I actually think I would start playing through the New Game Plus, and that's saying something. Well guys, that's it for me. Let me know what you think about Salt and Sanctuary. Have you ever played this game? Does the art style turn you off just like it turns me off? I'd love to hear what you have to say. That's it for me though. I'll talk to you later. Bye!